my name is Rebecca Grant, and my date of birth is 4th of November 1981. I am an actress and I am an artist as well, but primarily an actress, which keeps me on my toes and keeps me busy. When I first attended Miss Morrison School of Dance, I actually was about 3 years old, and I would sit on my mother's lap watching my two sisters, Angela and Rachel, do their ballet class. And I remember distinctly at the age of 3 getting off my mum's lap, and there used to be this grey filing cabinet where Miss Morrison used to stand, or near where she used to stand, and I went over to it, held one of the handles and started doing the ballet class all by myself, you know, not a care in the world, and copied all the students. So yeah, I would say at that moment I started at the age of 3. God, I feel like I never left, really. I think once a student of Miss Morrison, always a student of Miss Morrison. But I actually left. Oh, it's hard to say. I would say early 20s. Even though I worked, I still went back to her. And I danced in a few of her shows as well. But yeah, officially probably when I was about 18, when I, you know, around that time, between 16 and 18, I started working in the West End. But then I actually moved to London when I was 16, but I still kind of went back to Nottingham and did her classes. It's hard to say. Like I said, you never really leave Miss Morrison's dancing school. Primarily RAD ballet. Yeah, with Miss Morrison, she taught very good RAD ballet traditionally and wonderfully, and explored all types of storytelling and interpretation through music and dance. I was very much involved in doing all of the exams throughout my childhood. I think I actually did one exam with mumps, and for some miracle still got distinction. But that's Miss Morrison. Her common phrases were, pull your socks up, has everyone met? You don't want to look like the back end of a bus. I think those were her 3 main phrases, and all the other students will laugh at that because that is so true. Yeah. I think she was disciplined, but not very strict. I think she was strict in a very disciplined and traditional manner. Yeah, I was never afraid of her. I don't think anybody was really afraid of her at all. She was the complete quintessential supporting ballet teacher that you can imagine. She had a presence that I guess was ethical, and so you had to live up to that standard and perform to that standard. Just sheer perfection as a ballet teacher, I would say. It wasn't competitive. In fact, my sisters were my role models growing up. I looked up to them. I copied them a lot, as you do as a little sister. And I was so proud of them. I was very proud of them. And they used to be the big, the older girls that would get up and dance and do their numbers. And yeah, I felt very supported by them. No, I didn't feel competitive at all. I mean, me and my sister used to do duets, sometimes would fight a bit, but when I look back, it was hilarious trying to rehearse in our front room. She would lift me up as part of a dance, and we used to do this Thailand dance, and there was some kind of, a lot of coordinated stuff that we had to perform. No, I think it was the most creative part of my life, working together with my sisters, dancing together, making all the costumes, like my mum made the costumes, but we would make the hats, you know, get our fingers burnt, using the glue gun, trying to do our Thailand hats for this Thai dance we did, you know, Victorian hats, roses that we'd make out of ribbons. We did a lot together, and I think it was the most beautiful and, you know, blooming part of our lives, you know, me and my sisters working together and dancing together at that school. Now when we have a grant gathering, I mean, I wish we had more grant gatherings because we're all dotted all over the place at the moment. Oh, it's fantastic. It's fun. And I guess what comes out of all our natural characteristics that we had at that time at Miss Morrison's. And yes, we do talk about Miss Morrison. We do talk about our childhood, the business. We talk a lot about our family, our children now, because we've all got children. And yeah, we talk about ex-students and what they're up to and what we used to get up to at Miss Morrison's School of Dance. It never really occurred to me that I was always the leading girl, because I saw other leading girls as well, but I suppose so. I didn't know other students had that perception of me always being the leading girl. I mean, I guess I was as time went on, but I always saw it as a group effort. And yeah, and there were other leading girls. I suppose when I first joined, I aspired to be like the older girls, you know, and I suppose it never really occurred, the status of being the leading girl never really occurred to me, because I was just completely lost in the storytelling of Miss Morrison's stories, completely immersed in her imagination. I think I was going to classes every day, but that's what you do when you want to be a professional dancer, which I wanted to be at the beginning of my career. So I went to ballet, I think about 2 or 3 times a week. I think it was tap on a Tuesday, and then contemporary or jazz. Yeah, jazz on a Friday. And then we had like a beautiful kind of, all the students would attend on a Saturday. And it was great. I miss it. It was really great. I take my daughter to a very good dance school, a ballet school, and there's like an older lady playing the piano, and you know, it's very much set up like Miss Morrison, so that brings back nice memories, and there's a hope for, like, you know, attending the shows and seeing my daughter dance there. As a child, it felt like the biggest show on the planet and of your life every single year. It was like, I think as a child, it was like something like attending the bloody Oscars or something. It felt, the gravitas of Miss Morrison shows had that importance, value and professionalism about it. It was that important to all of us, and it was just such a big point of the year that everybody got involved in. I mean, even there was a parade at the beginning where Miss Morrison's sister, would have to scrutinize every single strand of hair, strand of material, costume, makeup, every single costume she would have to scrutinize, and each girl would have to step forward and you know, be judged, but not in a terrible way, in a truly professional, pull your socks up kind of way. And we all had the blues when it came down. We all had the blues when it was the last day. But then we would have this wonderful celebration of, like, I think curly-whirly chocolates and sweets, and we'd have a party at the end of it. It was so significant, a moment in our year, every year growing up. Pride and Prejudice was a wonderful dance that we did, and it was 5 sisters, And it's funny because we all look so different. But it was obviously from that era, that Jane Austen era. And all of us had different characterizations reflecting our characters, and one was in love, one was studious, one was you know, free, and you know, would be exploring, and it was a beautiful dance. And I think every single female student had a go at each of the characters as we grew older, because that dance stayed around for years, as did Pieyezu, which was a very kind of statuesque Greek orientated dance that stayed around for years. And I'm sure one of the students had turned 50, and one of the younger students turning 16, you know, probably was still dancing it in the shows or competitions. So I would say that those two dances were pretty legendary. It's funny. I know this sounds terrible, but yes, I was very ill and I nearly died. Um, I nearly, yeah, I nearly died. And it was a severe asthma attack, really, really bad. I'm fine now. I've handled a lot with my health now, but as the age of 16, it just got really, really bad. And I had to be rushed to hospital. For me, I mean, this sounds really weird. I had like a near death experience. I was having like past life experiences during that time. It was like a 2 week stint. I don't know what the hell was going on, because I was so comatose and so full of drugs at the time, like, you know, medical drugs, trying to keep me alive, to keep me sedated so they could work on me and stuff. God, I was spiritually, I was venturing in and out of the planet and to other countries. It was just to other times, and it was the most incredible spiritual experience. So I wasn't in any pain. I was frustrated before because I found it very, very difficult to breathe as a dancer, but being a dancer helped me combat my lungs and combat the body. That's the thing. I think the reason why it didn't bother me so much was because dance had put me in a situation where I had full control over my body and my lungs, that should anything bad happen, I'd know what to do to get myself back up. So what happened was that I did fight. I think my dad found a medical drug that worked, and he asked the doctors to put that in my system, and they did. And I started coming round, and I started getting better, but I had a 50-50 chance of survival, which is not that great. But then I started to come back. I suppose I was like, right, I'm ready to come back now. I've been on my adventures. I'm ready to return back to planet Earth, which I did. And yeah, and I came back, and yes, I had to be on medication and stuff, but I think within a couple of weeks, or a few weeks, I was already going back to ballet school. And I think it was my mum who was like, come on, let's go back to dance. And I didn't bat an eyelid, and I was like, fine, let's do this. I wanted to, because all my muscles had, you know, I'd lost a lot of weight from being in that coma. And yeah, I went back to dancing and became stronger and fitter. And, you know, people were going, oh, you know, take your time. It wasn't the dance that gave me asthma. It wasn't like the dancing where I should be afraid of moving the body because I still wasn't well. I think you should absolutely get back into communication with your body as a dancer. And I think that's what Miss Morrison taught me. Okay, she started me quite gently doing some classes. I actually remember, you know, having a few private classes and how gently we went about it. But it was the most perfect rehabilitation for me and my life and my body. It was dance, you know. And it got me back on my feet, and I did the show, and I did a Hawaiian dance for that particular show. And still a couple of people are like, oh, I'm so worried about you. And I'm like, no, it's not, we don't run away from our capabilities when we've been sick. We have to master them and own them again. That's how powerful we are. That's how powerful Miss Morrison made us feel. And I think that's why so many students went on to have successful careers, no matter what it was, whether it be in dance, in entertainment, in business, in estate agenting, in accounting. I think because she made us feel we could do anything and we could master anything if we put our mind to it. So as tragic and horrible as it was for my family and, you know, my friends and people around me in the school, I suppose I felt a lot of the prayers and that energy pulling me back down to earth, you know. And I didn't feel harmed or like scared in any way. I came back braver, and with the help of Miss Morrison, I came back stronger physically and continued to do so. You know, I start about a new ballet class next week because of that mentality, you know, that the show must go on. Dancing with Michael Stoico was the most natural and fun and most creative, brilliant thing I ever did as a child. And because I had really bad eczema, so with asthma, you get sometimes really bad eczema. It's like the body's trying to get rid of something through the skin. And I had really bad eczema on my hands, and he was the only boy who would hold my hand as a child, and he didn't care. And yeah, I suppose we were just a natural pair of performers together. We were kind of the same height, had a similar determinism, like a determined mentality. I mean, he was a superstar. I was in awe of him. And we used to be so naughty when we used to go shopping, like with my mum after a ballet class and go to Sainsbury's. He'd be doing somersaults and flips down the aisles, and we'd be chucked out of Sainsbury's in the middle of Arnold. But yeah, dancing with Michael Stoico was the most natural and beautiful and fun thing I ever did in my childhood. And I was very fortunate to be his dancing partner for many, many years. I remember me and my girl, we did that, me and my girl, and we performed Me and My Girl, and we were dressed from head to toe. So I've got a bit of a cold. We were danced from head to toe in gold material and gold fringe, you know? It was hilarious, but brilliant. When you're in a long contract for many, many years, obviously they kind of own you and you don't really have that much freedom. I mean, you might have freedom, you know, within a few weeks you have off and this, that, and the other. But I've been in a couple of contracts. I think my contracts, the largest I've done was 2 years on TV and 2 years in the West End. And yeah, you're pretty much tied to that unless you can negotiate something for, I know a few people who've negotiated like 2 months off to do something with the RSC or in the West End. West End is a bit stricter because it's the West End. It's hardcore, you know. It's like boot camp, training for the army. So you can't really do much, but you do a lot in that contract. So yeah, you do a lot of TV, and you know, if you want, they might take the show to the Royal Variety Show, that kind of thing. So yeah, you're kind of restricted, but in a longer contract than freelance. But at the end of the day, it's work, and you make it what it is. That's the other thing Miss Morrison taught us, is that you make your journey what it is. You can choose to be trapped in a contract, but it's your point of view if you are trapped or not, if you can create something within that, or if you can approach your character in a different way. It's your point of view of how you perceive your position to be, you know, as a performer. I believe if you're a performer and you have to do I had to do 800 or 900 shows in Bombay Dreams, and I can tell you now, each show was very different because I wanted to make it different. Otherwise, I'd get bored out of my brains. But, you know, how I listened to the drumming, how I performed to a piece of music, how which part I would put my attention on, like which part of my body I would perform with tonight, you know. I think that's very valuable, your viewpoint as a performer, to keep yourself creative. My first break, I suppose my mum wanted to get me working, so, which is great, because, you know, I wanted to get working. I wanted to move from the nest and all of that. And she saw an advertisement in the Stage magazine for performers and dancers and singers for Chromapia. So I auditioned for that when I was 16, and I got that job, which was 6 months in Norfolk, would you believe? And then I soon went on to Panto, playing Princess Jasmine when I was 17, opposite, Rick Wakeman. It's like a rock band performer, famous for keyboard playing. And then after that, I did a few short films. And I suppose, yes, the biggest thing was like my agent called me saying, oh, you've got an audition for Bombay Dreams. You've got to be seen for Bombay Dreams. You know, they're looking for mixed race, ethnic performers and dancers and singers. So I auditioned for that. And yeah, at 19, I got that job. And it was so magical. It was so magical to be given that job and to be invited 2 weeks early. All the dancers were invited 2 weeks early before all the other performers and actors were invited to rehearse. So we had 2 weeks of rehearsing with like the top Bollywood choreographer, Farah Khan and Feroz Khan and Geeta Kapoor, those 3 top choreographers from Bombay. And they taught us all the Bollywood dancers for the show, which was so exciting. And Andrew Lloyd Webber was there, and the director was there, Stephen Pimlott, Meera Syal, who's the writer there, Shekhar Kapoor, who is a big Bollywood film director as well, who had this idea of Bombay Dreams. He was there. It was just like, oh my gosh. It was such a magical, creative, it's that joy of creating something from the beginning, which really feels like you're onto something special here. I still continue down in London. Yeah, I still kept coming back to Nottingham until I got because I saved my money from the show to buy myself my first flat in London, which was actually, you know, thanks to my mum who made me save, which was a good move, because then I had somewhere to live that was my own. But I still went home. But I did work, yeah, soon after that I went into work and decided to do more TV and more acting stuff. A Morrison girl. So yes, I'm a Morrison girl. I would say Miss Morrison, and I would speak for every single student, gave us the most exciting, imaginative, beautiful, creative, and wondrous and magical journey throughout our childhood. From everything from playing a sweetie in a sweet shop, to playing a girl who would travel the world, to playing a statue that comes to life and then goes back to a statue again, to playing every single exciting and magical character from probably most of the storybooks of our childhood. And that made us believe that we could be anything and do anything and create anything you wanted in your life. And I think we've taken on that ethos onto our careers and, you know, into our family life, into our later life, into our children. I definitely have fed that kind of, what's the word? That kind of way of life into my children. Stepping into different worlds and imagining you being a different character, and, you know, being able to overcome any barriers. But I think that's what Miss Morrison taught us, is the true essence of life, is that it is a story, and it is a story that you write and that you create and that you can dance to. I've got to say, even though Miss Morrison didn't have any children, she had hundreds of children in us. I mean, we were there every single day, and plus she had 1,000 porcelain dolls, so she was the mother of all dance. That's what I could say. Miss Tess, so you had Miss Morrison, who is this you know, profound, bold, at the same time gentle ballet teacher. And then you had this hardcore sister who was the accountant, who would not let you get away with anything, and that was Miss Tess. And even after Miss Tess passed away, there would be this buzzer that you press to let yourself in. And she'd be in the office and she would go, hello. And honestly, even when she passed away, I would still, it would be as normal, as light as day, as normal as anything, that if you press that button, you would assume Miss Tess would still answer. And for weeks, I kept thinking she would answer, even though she was gone. But Miss Tess, as every student would know, was hardcore. But she was at the same time equally the backbone of Miss Morrison's School of Dance, and supported Miss Morrison as if they were like one. I've never seen such a warrior in a lady as Miss Tess. She would not let you get away with anything, and that's what I loved about her. And she inspired me too, to be that ethical and that hardcore and that proud of her school.